Yo, what's good YouTube? It's boardzy, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review of the Razer Viper Mini. This just released a few days ago. It is the mini version of the Razer Viper and the Razer Viper Ultimate, but it's not the same mouse exactly, and all of the things that are different, in my opinion, are very positive changes. The first thing we're going to talk about is the build quality. This mouse is $40, which makes it one of the cheapest, like budget-friendly options there is. Cheaper than the Glorious mice, cheaper than the MM710, and cheaper than a lot of like the heavier Logitech mice that are like pretty outdated at this point, but a lot of people still use them. And this thing is solid. There's no issues with the build quality. Literally none. I could like fucking try to fuck the shit out of this mouse and nothing bad would happen to it. And that's just insane. For $40 you're going to be getting the best build quality on the market. Something like the Model O minus, it has pretty solid build quality, but like if I really wanted to, I could break this mouse with my hands. I could not break this mouse with my hands. And that's not just me saying that. I guarantee you, if I wanted to, I could not fucking break this mouse. So the build quality, it is honestly a 10 out of 10. I accidentally clicked my DPI button. Okay, it's back to 800. And that brings me to another thing that's different. The DPI button used to be on the bottom, now it's on the top. I don't really mind the difference, but if you are gonna mind the difference, just fucking get over it, because it's not going to change and you can always just unbind the DPI button. But yeah, it did move to the top. And now getting into the weight. This mouse weighs around 60 grams. Razer lists at 61, but a lot of people are getting a few grams below that. So I'm just going to say around 60, somewhere between like 58 and 61, let's say. And this mouse is going to weigh very similar to the Hottie and the Model O minus, if you guys are familiar with those weights. And it's going to feel very light in your hand because it has a very solid weight balance. As you can see, the mouse is like, well, you can't really see the weight balance, but you can believe me when I say that the weight is balanced. So it's not going to feel a bit heavier on the bottom than the top, like the MM710 does. And it does feel a bit different than the standard Viper, which weighs around 70 grams. And yeah, overall, it's just a very light, perfect weight for a mouse. It's not going to be like too low, so you're shaky, and it's also not going to be like too heavy to the point where it like causes any type of fatigue or overall just like harder to move. And it's kind of insane that they got it to such a low weight with no honeycomb no honeycomb design. And that's something you kind of got to applaud them for. Now, talking about the coating, the triggers, mouse 1 and 2, have a very nice feeling that kind of super grippy, feels like the stock keycaps on the Razer Huntsman TE, which are PBT. So I'm going to say it feels like a PBT keycap in the sense that it's not going to pick up sweat, has a nice amount of grip, and it overall just feels nice. It's not like a solid like matte where it's going to be slippery or just like overall not very grippy. It is grippy and it feels nice. And they removed the rubberized side grips in exchange for the stock nearly the same feeling as the mouse 1 and 2. And it feels nice. Haven't had any sweat stains so far. And also, if you guys know, if you guys watched my Why the Razer Viper Sucks video, this also allows for the side buttons to protrude more, which is the best thing they did to this mouse. They made it viable for so many more people than it was on the standard Viper. These side buttons are now very easy to hit, and they're also really firm and very crispy. Honestly, some of my favorite side buttons. No pre or post travel, which is pretty rare in a side button. Nice deep sound and very easy to hit. So the side buttons are one of the biggest upgrades, and they're very good. This is now very viable for Fortnite players or anybody else who uses side buttons. They did, of course, get rid of the side buttons on the right side, which is also very good. Now getting into the mouse 1 and 2 clicks, they changed from, they still use the optomechanical switch, which is rated for 50 million clicks, which is absurd. They changed it from the little mushy, not firm clicks whatsoever to now very crispy, satisfying clicks. And I'm not sure what they changed, but you can see that's still a very light click. And now it is very crispy as opposed to the mushy clicks they had before. So another big improvement on the clicks. The scroll wheel, they changed this. They made it a bit lighter, which in my opinion is good. A lot of people complained about that on the Viper. I didn't really have an issue with it, but now it is very similar to the Hottie scroll wheel, which you guys know I'm very fond of, one of my favorite scroll wheels. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but it does have the little balls on the scroll wheel, and I love just stroking the little balls, even though they're like closer to triangles. But yeah, it's a very nice feeling and improved on the Razer Viper. Also has a nice click. You guys can see my monitor shaking. It's what happens when I have both of my elbows on the desk. And yeah, this, just dropped the mouse. This scroll wheel is a lot better. So far, everything on this mouse is a lot better than the Razer Viper. And where this changes is on the cable. I don't know why, but this cable is a lot stiffer and less flexible than it was on the original Viper. I'm not sure why this is, but you can see it kind of like doesn't really, like, it's not flexible, it's not very soft. It's like a stiffer version of the standard ultralight 2 cable. I'm definitely going to paracord this mouse because I'm going to start using this mouse a lot. And that's just something that's not unacceptable, because if you do throw it in a bungee, it's still going to be very usable, but it's not the best on the market, and I just feel like it definitely could have been improved on. But I'm not going to complain when I could just install a paracord and have my complaints go away. So now flipping over to the bottom of the mouse, they have the new feet, which are very similar to Zowie feet, which I love. It gives a nice buttery smooth glide. These are PTFE feet, of course, while the stock Viper did not have PTFE feet. So I'll give a little glide test on my Decanic control. The feet are very fast and the mouse glides a lot. Very easy and smooth to move in your hand, accompanied by the super low weight. So overall, thumbs up, 10 out of 10 feet. Actually, not 10 out of 10, because around the sensor, this isn't even a mouse foot. This is just, it's just plastic. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure why they couldn't afford to put a little PTFE rectangle around it, but for whatever reason they couldn't, and instead we have this little piece of plastic, which isn't like you can't feel it on your mouse pad, but I would have just preferred to have another PTFE glide. I'm sorry about my dog barking, that's really fucking annoying. But yeah, moving to the sensor, it uses a 3359, which is a sort of outdated sensor, but I'm telling, it only goes up to 8500 DPI, which you can see, focus, yeah, you can see it there. This isn't an issue at all. If you need above 8500 DPI, I would just say half your sense, so you can use 8000. Let's say you're using 16,000. You know what I'm saying. Just like convert your sense. You don't need a retardedly high DPI. But the tracking on this sensor is perfectly fine. And I've heard from other reviewers that the liftoff distance is a bit high, but I haven't noticed any of that. So I've had a perfect tracking experience with this mouse, and these sensors felt exactly as good as a 3360 or a 3389. But in the software, you are going to lose the ability to like adjust a custom liftoff distance for your mouse pad, and one other thing that I'm forgetting right now. So if you were used to the sensors on the Viper and Viper Ultimate, like the little features you got with them, those are not going to be there anymore. And going into the final change of the actual aspects of the mouse, they added a bit of RGB on the bottom, which is a nice touch. It wasn't necessary by any means, and it probably cost like a gram of weight, but I don't see any issue with it. It's pretty cool. It has a nice little underglow now. You can kind of see on my mouse pad, even though it's not focusing for whatever reason. Yeah, you can see it. So overall, everything on this mouse is insanely solid, and we're going to talk about the shape now. They did make the hump a bit taller, which makes the overall height of the mouse taller. So this mouse is going to be made for people with medium to small hands, maybe large hands if you fingertip, and it's going to be made for people who claw or fingertip grip. Unless you have really small hands, you're not going to be able to palm grip this mouse, but for me, with my 19 by 10.5 hands, I get asked this in every video. My hands are 19 by 10.5, and I play a sort of relaxed claw slash fingertip grip. This mouse is the perfect shape for me. I used to use the Model L minus a lot, and my biggest issue was that it's a bit too narrow and I didn't really have anywhere for my pinky. But on the Viper Ultimate, I have a ton of room for my pinky. You can see that it's not on top of my ring finger like it is on the Model L minus, even though it's not going to focus. Yeah, you can see that it's a bit wider than the Model L minus, which is exactly what I needed. So I'm obviously going to make a more in-depth Model L minus versus Razer Viper Mini video, but yeah, just know that that's one quick thing. If you have a super like ultra small mouse like the Ultralight 2 or the Model L minus, and you want something a bit wider, this is going to be the mouse for you. And along with this, if you have any sort of small mouse and it has any issues with the shape or anything, or maybe you don't like the side buttons or the clicks, this mouse is only $40. And for me, someone who buys a lot of mice, this is super cheap, and I'm obviously not going to pass up on such a great deal. You're getting a ton of features, like the optomechanical switches, the now usable side buttons, the great coding, great scroll wheel, PTFE feet, solid sensor, and a decent cord, not the best cord. For only $40, that's not a deal that's going to be beaten anytime soon. The closest thing to that are the Glorious mice, and those are $50 and have issues of their own. So overall, this mouse, very solid, very low priced, made for people with small to medium hands. And yeah, I can't wait to make my comparison videos with this mouse. It's been boardzy, no gameplay for this video. Peace out, make sure to like and sub.